Welcome back, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer, where we're going to break down the anatomy of a truly disastrous royal decision. Today, we're looking at an absolute masterclass in crisis, leadership, and honestly, the devastating consequences of inaction. We're going to unpack a highly charged historical confrontation drawn straight from the ancient texts. It's one of those moments where the fate of an entire dynasty literally hangs in the balance, resting entirely on the shoulders of just one ruler. Together, we'll systematically break down the arguments, the warnings, and the ultimate fatal choices made in the halls of power. It's a fascinating look at human nature and governance. So, let's jump right in.
If the destruction of our race is come, let it take place freely. Now, that is spoken by King Dhritarashtra. And man, it is a truly chilling statement to hear from a leader, isn't it? Right off the bat, we are dropped into incredibly high stakes here. This isn't just about some minor policy disagreement. We are talking about the existential survival of an entire dynasty, the Bharata race. To hear a king speak with such absolute fatalistic surrender is just shocking. But you have to wonder, how does a leader reach a point where they are willing to just let destruction happen? Well, to understand that, we have to look back at the chain of events and the desperate interventions that led up to this exact terrible moment.
So, let's start with part 1, the jackal's cry, the omen ignored.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of the king's surrender, we really have to rewind the timeline to the inciting incident. We're talking about a massive red flag that was raised super early on, but ultimately it was dismissed. These clear historical warnings were delivered by Vidura, a figure noted in the text for his incredible intelligence. When Duryodhana was born, Vidura didn't mince words at all. He immediately identified the child as a disgrace of the race. The text actually notes a deeply unsettling omen here. The child cried repeatedly and dissonantly, literally like a jackal. Vidura stated with absolute certainty that this child would prove to be the destruction of their race. His proposed solution? It was extreme, sure, but in his view, absolutely necessary to save the many. He said the child had to be sent to the other world. This establishes the immense gravity of the problem from day one. The king was warned by his most intelligent counselor from the very start. So we're setting up a classic conflict here between objective, harsh advice on one hand and subjective, personal attachment on the other.
Moving on to part 2, a mother's desperate plea.
Now, the warnings from Vidura were years in the past, but the threat has fully matured. The person staging the intervention now isn't just another advisor, it's the virtuous queen Gandhari. She's the king's wife, and crucially, the mother of the very son who's causing this whole crisis. Just frame that in your mind for a second. Think about the incredible difficulty of her position. She is stepping forward, afflicted with profound grief, to ask her own husband to abandon their son for the greater good. Just look at the sheer power of her plea here. She tells the king, "Sink not for thy own fault into an ocean of calamity." Gandhari is desperately trying to wake the king up to his own agency. She's telling him, look, if this disaster happens, it won't just be bad luck, it's going to be your own fault. She wants to stop him from passively sliding into this ocean of calamity. She's demanding that he step up, take responsibility, and actually be the leader his people need, rather than letting himself be dragged down by the reckless actions of his children.
And this brilliantly illustrates the clear choice laid out before the king. Gandhari breaks it down so objectively. On one side, you have what she identifies as the wicked faction, Duryodhana and the other sons, characterized by immature years and wicked counsels. But on the other side, you have the peaceful faction, the sons of Pritha, who are described as completely peaceful and totally unprovoked. Gandhari is pointing out the absolute absurdity of the king giving his approbation, his approval, to the wicked faction, while at the same time provoking those who are currently at peace. She is laying out the chessboard perfectly clearly, showing him exactly who is driving the conflict and who is actually trying to maintain stability.
To really drive her point home, Gandhari uses some incredibly vivid rhetorical metaphors. Just read this question. Who is there that will break an embankment which hath been completed? Now, an embankment takes time, right? It takes effort and engineering to build, and it protects everything behind it from being washed away. She's expressing sheer disbelief here. She's essentially asking the king, why on earth would you intentionally smash the dam that is keeping our entire society safe? It really highlights the complete senselessness of destroying an established, peaceful structure just to appease the immature desires of his sons.
She immediately follows it up with this second question, building a really powerful narrative rhythm. She asks, or rekindle a conflagration which hath been extinguished. A conflagration, a massive, destructive fire. If you have successfully put out a raging fire, it is absolute madness to go back and purposefully reignite it.
Through these two questions, Gandhari is telling the king that his actions aren't just passive, they are actively destructive. By allowing his sons to proceed, he is literally smashing the dam and lighting the match.
Which brings us to part 3, the logic of virtue and strategy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what makes Gandhari's intervention so remarkable. She isn't just relying on emotional appeals here, she operates on deep moral philosophy and what she calls true policy. She perfectly transitions from vivid metaphors to hard, pragmatic governance. She's trying to guide his mind with counsels of peace and virtue, showing him that doing the right thing is actually the most strategic move he can possibly make. Gandhari contrasts two distinct paths for the long-term sustainability of power. The first one, prosperity acquired by the aid of wicked acts. Her verdict on that? It is soon destroyed. It's a short-term gain that carries the exact seeds of its own ruin. The second path is prosperity won by mild means. This kind of power, she argues, taketh root and descendeth from generation to generation. She is urging the king, practically begging him, to look past the immediate aggressive demands of his sons and think about legacy, stability, and generational survival.
And she grounds all of this in a very realistic view of human nature. Gandhari points out a profound limitation. The scriptures can never control the wicked-minded for good or evil. You just cannot expect religious texts or rules or traditions to magically rein in individuals of immature understanding and wicked minds. A person of immature understanding, she warns, will never act as one of mature years. The king simply cannot rely on the rules to fix his sons. He actually has to step up as their leader and enforce the boundaries himself. Which leads directly to her ultimate agonizing demand. Therefore, at my word, O king, abandon this wretch of our race. Wow. It is a stunning climax to her argument. She tells him plainly that the time has come for the destruction of the race through this specific son, exactly as Vidura predicted all those years ago. And, she recognizes exactly why the king has failed to act up until now. It was solely due to his parental affection. She tells him, "Thou couldst not, O king, from parental affection do it before. But now? Now," she says, "the stakes are way too high. He must err not, he has to abandon the son to save the whole."
All right, let's look at part 4, surrender to the end, the fatal choice. So, Gandhari has laid out a flawless argument based on history, strategy, morality, and the stark reality of their situation. She has pointed out the path of virtue in the clearest possible language. The tension is at its absolute peak. How is the king going to respond to this path of peace and true policy? His response, "I am ill able to prevent it." Guys, it is a devastating pivot. After all of Gandhari's fiery belief in moral agency and taking action, the king just deflects. He claims he's unable to stop the momentum. He surrenders entirely to destiny. Where Gandhari saw a choice between breaking an embankment or protecting it, Dhritarashtra simply throws his hands up and says the flood is coming regardless. It is a complete and total abdication of his responsibility as a ruler.
So, the crucial point is exactly this verdict right here. Parental affection completely overrides reason. The king is presented with airtight logic from his most trusted counselors and even his own wife. He knows the prophecies, he knows the wickedness of his sons, and he totally knows the peaceful nature of his rivals. And yet, his subjective affection and his weakness in the face of his son's desires completely blind him to logical governance. He consciously chooses the comfort of yielding to his children over the incredibly heavy burden of saving his kingdom.
And here is his final destructive verdict. Let the Pandavas return, and let my sons again gamble with the sons of Pandu. He essentially says, let it be exactly as my sons desire. This right here is the ultimate seal of their fate. The crisis intervention has completely failed. By saying this, he is explicitly giving permission to restart the very conflict that is going to burn everything to the ground. He is actively striking the match to the exact conflagration Gandhari begged him not to rekindle.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. When crisis strikes, does destiny dictate our fall? Or is it actually our own refusal to make the hardest choices? Dhritarashtra blamed the impending destruction on an inevitable fate. But as we explored today, he had every single opportunity, every warning, and every logical reason to change course. He just couldn't bring himself to do the hard thing. It's a profound reminder of the immense weight of leadership. I hope this deep dive gives you a really powerful new perspective on this historic confrontation. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.